to get started on what we can do for you and what the test can provide for you. So today, we will be explaining to you kind of what the April 19th test day is going to look like. We will be offering the ACT test plus writing exam on April 19th, 2016 to all of our juniors and seniors who have not yet had the opportunity to take it, because they were all given that opportunity last year as juniors. So we'll be going through that, what the test day is going to look like, what the test itself is going to look like, and also, most importantly, how you all can prepare for it. Specifically, talking about our John Baylor Prep we're implementing this year, and that is a program that's been proven to help increase ACT scores. So I'd highly encourage you all to take down notes about it, ask questions, and we will get started today. I'm hoping that this will be pretty informal, so if you have any questions as we go through the night, feel free to raise your hand and we'll get to you. But for now, we are going to start off with our Director of Secondary Education, Kathy Niebor.
Well, good evening and welcome. I'm not going to speak with you much tonight, but I do want to cover a piece that changed in the legislature last year, and it really impacts the class of 2017, which would be this year's juniors. So last year, we had to offer the ACT to this year's seniors, and they had to take that as part of the graduation requirement. So they had to take it. They could opt out if they wanted, but they did have to take the test, and that was on the books for your class as well until this past spring. And so what the legislature, I should say last spring, the legislature decided last year was that you as juniors must be provided the opportunity to participate in a district-provided college entrance exam in grade 11. So if you're a junior, part of the reason for the statewide test happening during the school day is because of this legislation. So you do not have to take it, but you have to be offered the opportunity to take it during the school day. And if you are a 12th grader and you did not take it on a statewide day last year, which was about the same time in April, with a makeup in May, we will allow those juniors to take it as well. The school district decides what that college level entrance exam or college entrance exam is, and we, like most schools in the state of Minnesota, have decided it is the ACT. And if we give the ACT, it has to be the ACT plus writing. So why the legislature decided to change it from you have to take it to you have to have the opportunity to take it, I'm not really sure. But that is what changed. So we are offering the opportunity for every junior to take the ACT during the school day. It is statewide on the same day. We don't pick the day. So that is April 19th. And so we've determined the exam as the ACT. The legislature also decided to cut funding for that testing opportunity, but because the statewide testing with MCAs had a few glitches in it last year, as part of a settlement, Pearson, who operates our MCA statewide testing, part of the agreement for the glitches in the testing is they will pay for anything for school districts up and beyond what the Minnesota Department of Education will pay for the ACT tests. So we initially learned, I don't know, sometime this last summer, that there wasn't enough money for every junior in the state of Minnesota to take the ACT. So then it was first come, first serve. So whichever district signed up first, which of course there was a big outcry that really wasn't fair, because we knew that the bigger metro districts would eat the budget up very quickly. So then as part of the settlement, whatever the legislature didn't set aside, Pearson will pick up. So the school district will pay the cost of the testing and then will be reimbursed by the state of Minnesota somehow, some way. So that is just kind of a long explanation as to why you are taking statewide testing. And And there's a makeup day, so if something happens, it's in May, and I don't have it off the top of my head. I am the district assessment coordinator. The school assessment coordinator is Mrs. Sievertson. She'll raise her hand there. So if you have any questions, she really is the one responsible at the high school level for the assessment. So any questions, you can opt out of this. You don't have to take it. We have to offer it. So, and it has to be a written opt-out. So, all right.
All right, thank you, Kathy. If any of you are wondering who us people are standing up here talking to you are, I didn't get a chance to introduce ourselves a little bit ago, but I'm Sarah Fisher. I'm one of the counselors. I have last names with starting with A through I. Miss Cubitt, Amy Cubitt's here. She's another one of our counselors, and she has last names J through R. And then Chelsea Henricks, she has last names S through Z. So if you haven't met us yet, feel free to come see us, ask us questions. We're in the front office, okay? So moving on, why should we take the ACT? Well, there's lots of reasons. There's lots of benefits to taking the ACT exam. Probably the number one is going to be the second bullet on there, kind of like what Kathy Niebuhr was saying a second ago. We pick up the cost. And so this is offered free to you. And so I would highly encourage you to take advantage of it, because any other time that you take the ACT, if you were to do the statewide testing and you were to go to act.org and register for it that way, they're going to charge you about $56 is how much this test would cost. So you take it here on April 19th, that $56 will cover it, and it's free to you. Also, the first bullet there, it's a big college entrance exam. So for most four-year college and universities, they're going to accept the ACT as their college entrance exam. And we'll get more into that about what types of colleges will accept it and what won't. But generally, for our most common schools that our students apply to around here, they're going to accept ACT scores. And it's going to be a big factor in deciding whether they're going to accept your application or not. If you're looking at more like coastal colleges on the east or west side, you might want to look into SAT, but that's another night. So, also, this is the third bullet here. Colleges will be able to find you. So when you do take the exam, whether you take it with us, whether you take it through act.org, you're going to be able to choose up to 4 colleges to send those scores to. They typically take about 6 to 8 weeks to send there, but those are sent to those colleges for free. So we highly encourage you to pick ones that you're seriously thinking about. And this is why we also encourage our juniors at this point in time to really start looking at colleges and start thinking about where you might want to go after you graduate. So it's good to have a good idea now so you don't have to pay for it later. If you end up choosing a college, let's say you're a senior next year and you end up choosing to go to a college that you did not send your scores to, you can still send them. You'll just have to go to act.org and pay a little fee for it. I think it's about $12 to send them to any additional schools that you do not write down on this day. So just to give you a heads up. Also, it can be used as a really good self-assessment. One of the only downfalls of the ACT, I would say, is that you don't get your score reports back. And by that, I mean you don't get to see like what questions you got wrong. So you'll know what score you got on the subject. So you'll know whether you get like 24 or on science or a 36 in math. And that'll give you really a good idea of what your strengths are and maybe where your areas of improvement are. And that'll give you a good idea of what you can improve on in the future if you were to retake it again. Also, on the last bullet too, is that there's a career exploration part of it, so it'll give you kind of an interest inventory and give you some ideas of what careers might be a good fit for you. And you can use that when you are applying to colleges, when you're finding a college that does fit your career interest field. Also, the biggest benefit, I would say, of taking the ACT in school on April 19th is that you're taking it in a setting that you're already familiar with. You're not taking it at a college in a cold, dark, damp room that you've never been in before, that's unfamiliar with a bunch of people you don't really know. You're going to be in a place that's comfortable and familiar with you, and that really gives you kind of a home field advantage, which is nice. So the things that you'll be tested on, I'll give you a second to look at these. There's going to be 4 main subject areas and then also a writing portion. That'll tell you how many questions there are in each section and also how much time you get in those sections. So this is what you'll get on the standard test. If you've applied for any accommodations and you've been accepted for those accommodations, it might look a little bit different, but generally, this is what most of you will see. Overall, the test will take just under 5 hours because you'll get a few breaks in there, and we'll kind of go over the details of what that'll look like a little bit later. So going over the 4 subject areas, the first one is going to be English. And with English, they're really going to be looking at the bullet points that you see here. So usage and mechanics, and then also rhetorical skills. And so what they'll do is they'll give you a paragraph, and they'll underline part of the paragraph in a specific sentence, and they might have a number next to it. So let's say that this underlined has the number 2 next to it. That's going to be question 2 that you're going to be answering. And so they'll take that piece of the sentence, and they'll ask you, is it correct the way it is? Or it might give you 3 more options of different ways that you can use grammar or punctuation and ask you which is going to be the correct answer. It also might ask about just general language usage, so what's the correct verb in this situation? Things like that. When it comes to the math portion, these are the things that they'll typically cover. Generally, most of our juniors are going to be through March, April of their curriculum by the time that they take the ACT test, and we've really aligned the ACT questions and the content that they cover with our curriculum. So as long as you know everything up until that point, until March or April of your junior year in Algebra 2, because that's traditionally where our juniors are at the time they take this, then you'll do well. With the reading portion, they'll have 4 different subject areas that are listed here. And they'll have really just kind of a big story that has to do with that topic. So social studies, natural sciences, literary narrative or prose fiction, and then humanities. So they'll give you a big narrative on those different subjects, and then they'll give you questions related to that reading. So they're going to be really looking for your comprehension of that reading and also your memory from it. It's nice because you have it both right there, and you can kind of look back and forth. And also what's nice about it is they'll have numbers next to the paragraph. So if there's something that you read and you want to take notes on, you can mark it, especially keeping in mind what numbers. Maybe you read something important and it's next to the number 15. Then you can remember that as you go back and look at the questions and kind of cross-reference that way. Moving on to the last content, the core content area is science. So with the science area, here are the things that they're going to be asking you about. They're really going to be looking more for your ability to interpret science and your scientific reasoning skills over the very specific things that you cover in your biology and chemistry classes. And so, for example, they'll give you a science experiment and ask you, what is the best hypothesis that matches this science experiment that we just explained? Or they might give you a graph and ask you to interpret the results of that, those types of things. So they're really looking for your ability to interpret and reason what those scientific skills are. And then finally, you'll finish with the writing portion. And so here, what they'll do is they'll give you a prompt, okay? And they'll ask you to take a stance on that prompt. And then they'll ask you to really just write about it. It's always good to prepare for something like this, create some sort of outline, have some sort of introduction, conclusion. Those are the kind of things they're looking for. If you look at the bottom there, those 4 bullet points, those are the things that they're really analyzing you on. Those are the things that are going to get your points. They're not going to grade you or on the content. They're not going to grade you on whatever point of view that you have. They're only going to grade you on your writing skills and how well you've been able to organize your writing. Okay? Does anyone have any questions about any of those and kind of what you're looking for? All right, well, we'll move on then to what do your scores mean and how to interpret your scores and what kind of scores you should be looking for. And also, just to give you a heads up, we have a lot of prep programs, what's the word I'm thinking of? Practice tests, and they'll give you some really good examples of what kind of questions each of the subjects are going to be looking like. So I encourage you to take advantage of those.
All right, so just to introduce myself again, I'm Chelsea Henricks. I am another one of the counselors here at the high school, and I work with students with last names S through Z. So to kind of go off of now what we're looking at for scores mean. So a fun thing we did in this fall was we actually surveyed our juniors to ask them, what do you think a good ACT score is? We got answers back like 80, 100, 10. So we thought this would be something good to emphasize on tonight that we have you all here. So a perfect score on the ACT, oh, I'm sorry, I was in the way. A perfect score on the ACT would be a 36. That's kind of top notch. Everything else from there, I've seen the average score is usually about a 20, 21 or so. A lot of kids, if they get a 19, they say, oh, I did so bad, but really, no, you didn't at all. That's average. Some kids are above, some kids are below. Most kids, I would say, generally do score between the 18 to 24 range, give or take. It just depends kind of on how they do in different areas. So kind of going over how to get that score of a 36. So as Ms. Fisher talked about earlier, you're going to be taking 4 different exams. Each one of those exams is graded separately. At the end, what ACT does is they take a score from each one of those exams, they add them all together, divide by 4, and that's your composite score. So that's kind of where you guys will look at as far as what you're going to get. And on those score reports you get, you can actually see too kind of what you scored in each content area. So if you do want to take the test again, you can have a general idea of, okay, I need to prep myself better in science next time, or I need to figure out how I can pace myself better in reading, different things like that. So when you get your score reports back, definitely read those closely and figure out what can I do to improve, or how great did I do in different areas. So going on to the next bullet point here is kind of the writing exam. And I know we talked about a little bit about that earlier, but that is kind of a whole different ball game as far as how it's scored. So when you do the writing exam, what it is you do your essay and everything, and it's scored by 2 different people. They each read your essay and look for those different important things like punctuation, flow, things like that. On a scale of 1 to 6, one person rates it one way, one person rates it the other way. They add those 2 scores together, and then it's out of 12. Usually about an average score for the writing exam, I would say, is about a 7, give or take. And like we said, some kids do a lot better, some kids do a lot worse. In the writing exam, that's something you can take the next time you want to retake the ACT, or it's something that you don't have to retake if you do great the first time. So I know it's kind of a lot of information, but again, that's just a really basic overview, kind of how the score is, what you get, and etc. So this is another part that we as counselors really just kind of want to emphasis on, is exactly, now that you have your score, what does it mean? Where can I go for school? A good thing that I would highly recommend to a lot of you is before you even take the test, if you have an idea of where you want to go for a school, figure out what score you need to get in there. Set a goal for yourself so that every time you take these practice tests, you do time things like that. You can understand, what can I improve? How can I reach my goal? We had a lot of students come to us this fall who took this test last year as juniors and were very shocked that the score they got wouldn't be their ticket into their dream school because they didn't know these things. So that's just something I would highly recommend you guys, is have an idea of what you want to aim for and what you want to sorry about that, and what you want to have in the end run as your dream school. So kind of going through here, we as counselors, we picked out about 5 different schools that tend to be about the top ones with our seniors this year. As you'll see, the first one, that's Riverland Community College here in town and in Austin. To go to most community colleges, you do not even need to take the ACT, but we do recommend that you guys take it just as an entrance exam. Something just to keep in mind is that if you are to go to this to a community college, you can also do the AccuPlacer, but again, that's a whole another evening here. So kind of focusing up next is Minnesota State University Mankato and Winona State University. Those two schools are very similar in size, ACT scores, costs, etc. We found that a lot of students tend to go to these schools, and as you'll see up there, we kind of give a general idea of what students to go there, the higher score, the medium, and then the lower score. So again, this is something just to think about if this is schools that you're possibly considering where you kind of need to fall. Now going off of this though, if it is saying something for, let's say Winona State, a lower score is 21. That doesn't mean that if you get a 19 and 18 that you're not going to get in there. A lot of schools take into different factors such as class rank, GPA to kind of offset if your score is below 21. So don't feel like that dream is unachievable. And same thing even for like Iowa State too. It kind of goes off the same route as just because you don't get a 21 doesn't mean that you're done, you're cut off. Schools look at a lot of different factors, but that's just kind of their general consensus as what their incoming freshman class, where they scored. Kind of going off of the next thing on here is the U of M. That's something that they're going to be a little bit more particular kind of on where your scores fall. So if you're not at about that 24 to 26 range, I mean, I would definitely recommend taking it again. So just keep that in mind that after you take a few practice tests, after you take the first test, if that's something that you want to attend, to maybe go back and kind of figure out where can I improve. So now that we've talked about what your scores mean and things like that, I'm just going to go over a few test taking tips. So probably the two biggest ones, or I guess the three biggest ones that we can really emphasize as counselors is to first of all get a full night's sleep. We see a lot of kids during the day that come to our office that are just dragging because they didn't get good sleep the night before. So you can imagine having to take a 5-hour test when you are so tired. So we really just want to emphasize that you guys are taking care of you, and that when you come to us at 8:15 bright and early that morning, ready to ace this test, that you are clear-minded, not foggy, and ready to rock. The next thing we want to talk about is to pace yourself and to not spend a whole lot of time on one question. I know when Ms. Fisher showed the questions earlier, I'm sure it was very overwhelming to see that you have to do so many math questions in such a little amount of time. By doing things like taking practice exams or being a part of our ACT prep that we offer here, we'll go over things like this and help you guys understand how to pace yourself. And again, just emphasizing the fact on practice and study for this so that when you take this test, you're not going to be so overwhelmed. Just as more you know about the test, the better you guys can succeed on it. And lastly, just answer all the questions. A lot of times we see kids who say that, oh, I only got so far and I left the rest of them blank. By leaving the rest of them blank, you're automatically getting them wrong. So by at least putting in ABC, CCC, DDD, you're at least giving yourself that small percentage that you might get them right, and that might make a huge difference in the long run of things. So those are just a few things that we recommend you guys keep in mind. Like I said though, if you do any sort of like ACT prep that we offer here, anything online, like you'll learn so many more test tips, and especially by doing those things, you'll learn a lot about yourself. About, do I need to read faster? How can I succeed here? So it's really about just kind of getting comfortable and knowing this test is the best way to really succeed on it. So lastly, for test taking tips, again, we're just going to talk about the writing test. I know we've gone a little bit around and around with this evening, but I promise this will be one of the last ones. So with the writing test, you'll be presented with a topic that you kind of can choose a side on. I've seen things on the test such as, should schools wear uniforms? Or should students receive credit for being involved in extracurricular activities? You as students, you'll kind of take that in, decide what side you want to be on, and that's where you'll start to organize and kind of be able to make that essay flow. Like I said, think about the different points you want to take. A lot of times students will just kind of write out an outline so that when they go to actually write that paragraph, they can just go back and forth and keep it organized. Also on here, exactly a big one is just stay on topic and be specific. You don't need to take up the entire writing booklet, but also don't write just a paragraph. Be specific, go into detail, talk about why this is important to you, and really show that you're passionate about what you're talking about. And lastly, don't forget to do a conclusion and to summarize. I mean, this is just going off of professional writing. This is stuff you guys do all the time in English 11 and working on different paragraphs and things, so you can do great at this. It's just a matter of be sure to emphasize, to go over again as, is this right? Does this make sense? And to be doing it and pacing yourself in that short amount of time. Yes? Nope, it is handwritten. Yep. So, do we have any questions as far as scores, schools? If you guys have a school in mind right now and you're not really sure what the ACT score is that you need to have it, come see one of us. We love looking at colleges. We love doing these types of things for you, and we'd love to sit down too and just kind of talk about your future and what kind of goals that you have and how we can get you guys there. Yep. Yep, that's correct. So, kind of how it works is the 4 core tests of math, English, science, and reading. That's one test altogether. So that's where that composite score comes from. So the writing test then, that is a separate test on its own. So let's say you did a great job on this writing test, but you didn't do so hot on the 4 cores. You could go back again and just take those 4 cores as one exam and not have to take the writing one. Yep. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, but you can't just take the writing one either. Okay, thanks. Do we have any other questions? Or um, yep. Yeah, yep. So kind of how this works is that when you're sending your scores to a school, you cannot just, let's say you were to take the test again, you loved your writing score, but you didn't like your composite score. You can, let's say you retook it, you could send your composite one again, but you would also have to send your scores from the test that you took the writing. You can't just send the writing test on its own to the school. Does that make sense, everyone? And just, yep, yep, exactly. And just something to keep in mind too is a lot of schools don't require the writing, but it's something great to have. I want to say in Wisconsin, one of the very few ones is UW-Madison, and also in Minnesota, I believe it's Carleton, U of M Rochester, U of M Morris, and then U of M Twin Cities are maybe about the only 4 or 5 that actually you need to have a writing score to be accepted. But like I said, it's a great thing to take. It definitely helps. In a lot of schools, it's just something to have to help you look even better. So, do we have any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you.
All right, and I'm Amy Cubitt, again, another counselor. Just some things to think about for the test day. The same things you've heard, I'm sure, for all standardized tests. Eat a good breakfast, get a good night of sleep, arrive on time. If you're late and like the test has already begun, we can't let you into the room. So you want to make sure that you're on time for this. It'll start around 8:15ish. I think that the time's still being worked out, but you just want to make sure you are on time so that we're able to take the test that you've been studying really hard for. You'll be assigned a classroom, which we'll communicate to you later down the road. Don't have to worry about that right now. The stuff you'll need to bring, basically just pencils. They have to be number 2 pencils. They can't be mechanical. I think there might be some wiggle room, but don't have it mechanical. It's not worth the risk of the score's not going through. So regular old standard pencils, number 2. Don't bring your cell phones. Don't tempt yourself by just having it in your pocket. Like, just leave it in your locker. If a proctor sees you on a phone, we have to take the test away. Like, you might not be doing anything with your phone, but we would have to take the test away. So it's not worth it to bring it. Just keep it in your locker. During breaks, you'll be able to walk around, talk to people. You can't be on your phones during the breaks either, because you might be. The assumption is if you're on your phone, you might be cheating. So that's what the ACT rules are. You are allowed to use a calculator. This would basically be whatever calculator you use for your math class, graphing TI-89 or whatever they're up to now, I don't know. It just can't be something that prints anything out or that can email, that has internet connection, that kind of thing. There's a link there on the ACT website. It has the list of all the ones that are acceptable and then examples of ones that aren't acceptable if you have questions about that. So yeah, the test will begin pretty much at the start of the day. It'll take a while. There'll be breaks in between a couple of the times, but then it'll get done roughly at 1:15, depending on how fast getting through all of the writing your name, address, all that information takes. Then you'll go to lunch. So you want to make sure you bring a snack for your breaks because it's going to be a late lunch. You don't want to be hungry trying to focus on a test. So just bring some snacks to have during the breaks, and then again, don't use your phones during that time. So after all this information, you have a couple months. This is a great time to start studying. It seems like it might be really far off in time, but it comes up really fast. And the more you get comfortable with the style of the test, how, timing yourself with your questions, the test is a lot about strategy. You might not know, maybe you're not so strong in math, but if you know what to expect and you know how to take the test, you're a smart test taker, that goes a long way. So you can do a lot to prepare yourself to know like what's going to come. You feel more comfortable with it. So some of our suggestions is just participate in class, because a lot of the materials that you're learning now, you'll be using on the test. There are some booklets up here. ACT only gives us a certain amount, so we don't have one for everybody, but we do have a bunch of copies up here. This pretty much talks about the different sections. I believe there's practice questions in the back here. Basically just says like what to expect on test day, that kind of information. Feel free to come up at the end and grab one of these. There's also the online prep program. So that's more of an individual, like you basically sign up. We give you an account. You can go in whenever you want to. You'll set up your own username and password, and you'll prepare. They'll have practice questions and that type of thing. If you are interested in doing that, we have sheets up here. You just fill out your information and then give that to one of us, or if you bring it home with you, give it to Melissa in the front office someday during school. Then we can get you an account, and you can use that whenever you want to. And obviously the John Baylor Prep Program, we'll talk more about that right after this. That would be another great way to prepare yourself. We do have a couple of books we can rent out. I mean, we only have a couple in the counseling office that we can rent out to students. The library has a number of them. Public libraries usually have some. If somebody graduated earlier, they might have a book. Those are really helpful. There's a lot of practice questions in there. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, just your teachers know like what test questions might come up in their classes. So maybe just quiz them. Be like, what kind of stuff should I really focus on for the ACT? For Algebra 2, like what kind of stuff is going to be on there? See what they have to say, because they've heard a lot of students over the years. Their information. They know what type of questions maybe students get stumped on a lot in their subject area. All right. So the John Baylor Prep Program, I think Kathy's just going to mention a little bit about.
So a couple of things as well. This is a paper and pencil test. It's not on the computers. But you also get to take the MCA grade 11 math test right about the same time as the ACT. So MCAs have not gone away. They are federal accountability tests, and so our 8th graders will be taking all 3 subject areas. Our 10th graders will be taking reading, and our 11th graders will be taking math. So unfortunately, the legislature did not decide to do away with the MCAs in lieu of the ACTs. Instead, you get to do both. So just want to give you a heads up on that piece. You also will be taking the grade 11 MCA math test. So over the years, Albert Lee Area Schools has offered ACT prep in a couple of different ways. Probably what most people know about is what we've offered through community education. This last year, being that all of our juniors are being asked to take it, we started looking at what can we offer all our students. And of course, there are companies out there ready to step up and offer us something to purchase. One of the programs that we have looked into and that we know a couple school districts are using is called John Baylor Prep. It is an online course that John Baylor Prep recommends you offer during the school day. Unfortunately, most of our juniors don't have time or an hour in their school day to say, okay, I'm going to take a college and career readiness class. And we're not prepared to offer one during the school day. So instead, we're going to try to do this a couple of different ways. We are going to offer the John Baylor Prep course before school starting February 29th. And so it'll run from 7 to 7:50 every day. It is not mandatory. It is optional. We are looking to hold about 24 sessions. They are 50 minutes in length, and we have a licensed math teacher, Mr. Wheatman, who has offered some of our other ACT prep courses, who will be proctoring that class, so to say. He will be using their videos. Every student will have an opportunity to take that class. You will get your own login. What if I can't make all those classes? That's fine. There'll be a video day, a homework day. There will be no Wednesday classes, so it's just Monday, most Tuesdays, although Mr. Wheatman will be handing out a updated schedule. That first Tuesday we will not be having class. And then Thursday and Friday morning. So if you're in a jazz band or something else that meets before school and you can't be there every day, that's acceptable. We are using all of John Baylor Prep's materials. If every junior wanted a login, we could offer that. They may or they may not. John Baylor Prep recommends that you attend about 20 of those sessions for it to be the most successful for you, but we know that things happen. A space permitting, if we had, right now we are anticipating around 30 students probably who will show up every day. If we have more than that, we'll be looking to probably hold the class here because we're looking to do it in D200 right now. We don't know what the interest will be. We also are giving all of our English, our science, and our math teachers access to the program, and they are taking a look at it and seeing what pieces can they do during the regular day individually in their class. We know if the reading and writing portion, if our English teachers were to take that on, it would take up substantial amount of time during their class period. So we're really trying to gauge how to spread this out during our coursework, potentially during the day, and then having this morning opportunity. Unfortunately, we don't have busing in the morning. However, we do have tutoring after school on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, if you weren't aware of that. And if a student wanted to participate and attend the tutoring session after school, we have 2 different licensed teachers on Tuesday and 2 different licensed teachers on Wednesdays. And we do have a bus that will drop in strategic parts of the community at 4 o'clock. And if you have any questions on that, you could probably see Mrs. Sievertson. She can help you with that busing question as well. So trying to offer some opportunities for this prep. We do know that John Baylor Prep indicates that kids who take this program will see anywhere between a 2 and a 4 and some higher point in their composite score. So for those of you who are, been here like 30 years like I have, may remember Mr. Espy, who was the principal at one time at Southwest. His wife is a superintendent in a district up north, Princeton, and she really, really supports this program and does some of their promotional materials. So how you get involved? You just sign up, and we have a sign-up sheet here tonight. And if you're not sure, you can always sign up in the office with Melissa Schumann in the front office. You need an email address. You can't get a log-on without an email address. It'll go 7 to 7:50, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, up until the 18th, which is the day before the test. So that Monday will be the last day that we meet. It's all prepared videos. All of the materials are from John Baylor Prep. They also have additional preparation materials on their website, so once you get access, there are other materials on that site. If you want to go to it and look at it, it's kind of loud, it's very action-packed. Mr. John Baylor is a lot more exciting than most of us, but it's kind of an interesting presentation. So we're trying this year to see if it helps our students. We know that for those of you who are interested in scholarships and college entrance, that ACT score is one of the top 4 things that colleges look at. And sometimes you might start, say, with a score of a 24, and you might get a $500 award from a school. And if you can raise it to 27, it might be $1,500, depending on the score. So we know that ACT test scores not only get you into that different schools and institutions, but it also makes you eligible for some of their scholarship opportunities that come from those colleges. So we, of course, want to assist you in that. So I don't know, Mr. Wheatman, he's been taking a look at the materials, feeling prepared.
If you've taken the ACT course through the community ed that we previously offered, this is different, and I think it's a lot better. It's a lot more focused, certainly a lot more aimed towards the actual ACT with John Baylor Prep. Plus, if you missed the community ed one, you were really behind in catching up in that material. If you were to miss even as Kathy said, 20 out of the 24. So if you missed 4 of those classes for this class, you're still not going to be incredibly behind, and you're going to be able to make it up on your own. So it's a really good opportunity, and I think you should take advantage of it.
All right, well, that about wraps it up for today. Does anybody have any questions at the moment? All right. Doesn't look like it right now. Well, just so you guys know, before you leave today, if you are interested in any of the ACT prep materials, we will have the John Baylor Prep sign-up sheet over here. There's also a pink sheet that you can pick up, and this is if you do decide to sign up for the John Baylor Prep. You can pick up this pink sheet. It'll give you information about how to sign up for the Remind app. Mr. Wheatman is hosting that, so that way you can get reminders about when they'll be starting the John Baylor Prep, for example. So that's a good app to have on your phone so you don't forget.
One other thing, we cannot start the exam after 9 o'clock. So given our weather woes, if it is a 2-hour late start, you will not test on that day unless we hear differently from the Department of Ed. We cannot start after 9 o'clock. So keep that in mind. There is a makeup day, May something. And we'll get May 3rd. All right, thanks, Mrs. Sievertson. So that's just that is ACT's decision making, and so as we've been told, if you are not up and running by 9, your school will not test that day. So.
Thank you, Kathy, for that note. Moving on with our prep materials, the ACT prep booklets. We have a limited number of these, so we're going to ask that you keep this to 1 per family. And those are right here. We'll keep those up here. Any of the books, we're going to ask you to check these out. So just let one of us counselors know, and we'll get down like a name and address so we can get those back eventually. And then the last thing, the ACT online prep, and that's run through act.org, the actual website. You can just fill out that. You can take it home if you want, but all we need is the information. So if you want to just fill it out now and leave it here with one of us counselors, we can get you signed up for that by tomorrow. So I don't have anything else for you. We'll be up here if you have any questions and you want to come ask us personally. And feel free to come and help yourself to any of the prep materials. Otherwise, have a good night, everybody. Thanks for coming.